Well, Sonny Jims, it's finally here. Fallout 76, the game that's almost as big a joke as Bethesda themselves. The game that's complete garbage. The most boring game ever. A shameful abomination. Yep, Fallout 76 is finally out, and if you've been on YouTube lately, you'll no doubt have seen plenty of content creators seeing how much they can stretch hyperbole to get views. Now, truth be told, I didn't get to play the beta, mostly because of my crappy internet connection and the weird schedules they had, so I don't know if maybe it was an entirely different kettle of mutated fish in that instance. But I've spent 20 or so hours in the final game, and after all that time playing the absolute worst game ever made, the nuclear waste that is Fallout 76, I gotta say, it's not that bad. Seriously. Is it amazing? No.
No way, fucking hell.
It's definitely average, teetering on good at times, but is it as bad as some people are making it out to be? Look, I don't think so. I mean, look, I went into this one ready to expect the worst, but all I got was Fallout 4 with a co-op component, a few new mechanics, and a new map in the Midwest. So can we just wipe away the salt and the exaggerations and talk about this game properly? Let's give it a go. In this one, you're a resident of Vault 76, and the game begins expectedly with you leaving the relative safety of the vault to explore the region of Appalachia. You choose how you want to look, you grab your Pip-Boy, and off you go. Fallout 76 uses the special skill system from before, being an acronym for Strength, Perception, Endurance, Charisma, Intelligence, Agility, and Luck, which are the different attributes of your character. Unlike the other games though, where these are set at the beginning and somewhat locked in for each playthrough, here when you level up, you put 1 point into each of them. And then choosing to upgrade a particular attribute allows you to also assign a new perk card to it. The perk cards are the specific upgrades for individual aspects, so if you're upgrading strength, you can choose a perk card like one that increases the damage that one-handed weapons do. If you upgrade something like luck, you can use a perk card that increases the chances of finding ammo in ammo crates. Every 5 levels you get these perk card packs, and if you end up with a duplicate, it basically works as a free upgrade for that existing card, which is a good thing I guess if it's a card you want to use. It's a bit of a weird system in the way that it does seem highly randomized, but at least it does make it a bit more unique, and being able to swap out cards at will does make it a lot more flexible. On top of that, in the co-op side of things, you're also able to share a card with other players in your team and also reap the benefits from theirs too. So, I mean, you can see how there's going to be a whole heap of options here for team play. But if it wasn't for this whole co-op aspect and this redesigned perk system, this really would just feel like a glorified Fallout 4 expansion. The UI, for instance, is basically the same. You'll come across the same looking weapons and items and do similar things like cooking food, boiling water, crafting ammo, weapons and armor at benches. You'll still be going around picking up gas cans and Zippo lighters and everything you can find to somehow magically turn it into something useful that you can then convert into weapon or armor parts. Even the lockpicking and the hacking is lifted straight from its predecessor. Instead of fighting bandits, you're fighting a new faction called the Scorchers, which are a new type of ghoul that just behave the same as human enemies did in Fallout 4. And you'll also take on things like Mirelurks and Radroaches and of course Deathclaws. Base building is back, but now it's mobile, and you can pop a camp down anywhere as long as it's not too close to an existing location. And with the option to add in campfires and workbenches and, well, pretty much anything you want, anywhere you are on the map at the cost of a dozen or so caps just becomes really advantageous. This is what they've really pushed as being some kind of unique or innovative new feature, but I think it's literally just the exact same base building mechanic from Fallout 4. Just now, as I said, with the choice to put it anywhere you want. So what has changed? Well, VATS, for instance, is now real-time, so instead of magically pausing the world around you, this basically just works like an aimbot, locking onto an enemy and giving you as many free shots as your action points will allow. At times you can catch a disease from enemies or a mutation if your rads are high enough, which is kinda neat I guess, but these just go away over time anyway. When you kill during combat, obviously it can't load an autosave or anything, so instead what it does is just let you respawn at the nearest discovered location. And then all it does is take away whatever junk components you had in your inventory, but you can still go pick these up anyway, so the penalty's kinda piss poor. Power armor returns and functions like it did in Fallout 4, but now you can store the entire suit in your inventory with the press of a button, without even needing a power armor station. You will still need the station to upgrade it, but not store it. The biggest thing though is that now there's no NPCs in the game at all. Like, there are robots around that you can interact with as vendors, but there's no other humans to interact with. So charisma, for instance, as a skill, now more affects team play than it does your ability to barter and persuade. As a result, the way quests now work is that when you enter an area, you just kind of get a quest automatically, as does everyone on your team. A marker's going to pop up and then you just go from there. Now, I think it's good in the sense that you don't have to talk to every single person in a town until you find the one that's the quest giver. And it also allows for a much more relaxed and loose sense of exploration. Like, you can just explore at your own leisure and just find things to do dependent on where you are. And it's kind of amazing in how easily it is to get sidetracked. Also, apparently there's a PvP system too, though I only ever came across a handful of other players the whole time I played this, and every single person I came across was completely passive. So this is really a PvE game first and foremost, with a focus on the co-op side of things. On that note, the co-op aspect is alright, I guess. I mean, exploring a buggy wasteland is definitely more fun with friends. And I've played it both solo and in a team, and I think I really prefer it with other people. Not to mention, one of the perk cards can increase the XP you gain up to 15% if you're in a team, aside from all the other benefits you're going to get from people sharing cards. The whole game's online too, so you're going to have to deal with other people at one point. Yeah, I know it sucks, it's almost like real life, isn't it? What I think's neat too is that loot is unique to each player, so you don't have to worry about someone running in and stealing all the stuff before you reach it. It's also scaled to your level, so if your buddy's level 30, he's going to find better weapons. But if you're still level 10 or so, the kind of guns you come across look like they're made out of paper mache and an old public toilet. There's always a bunch of world events happening across the map that you can fast travel to at the cost of a few caps, and the rewards for these are actually usually pretty decent, making them worthwhile. I gotta say though, I think the way quests work here is kinda stupid. So you'd think that like only one person would need to complete an objective and the whole group gets it, right? But no, everyone has to go through and manually complete each objective. When this is something like interacting with a computer terminal, 3 other people are just gonna have to stand there waiting for their turn. It just seems like an odd design choice. And it's never really explained how the quests or enemies scale for the players' levels either. I don't know if the amount of people in your team affects the strength of enemies you're up against. I mean, I'm going to assume it doesn't, but either way it won't change that the shooting just kinda sucks. I mean, honestly, the shooting in these games has never really been all that good. The only time I ever really liked it was in Fallout New Vegas, because that game actually allowed you to take non-combat approaches to missions. But here in Fallout 76, you pretty much have to fight enemies, frequently. And you're going to notice again just how sloppy the shooting controls feel. The problem is that if enemies don't seem like they're made out of glass going down in a couple of hits, they're instead absolute bullet sponges. Early on in the game, you seem to run out of ammo super quickly and weapons break after like 5 minutes of usage, unless you upgrade your perks to reduce this, so as a result the first few hours can feel really unbalanced. The Fallout FPS games I've thought have always had a really crappy balancing system, and there's never been a good middle ground with combat. Like, it seems to be either laughably easy, or you're up against someone who's just got so much resistance to damage that it's just godly. Super mutants are definitely one of the biggest offenders here. Like, these guys just become walking tanks, and they can soak up shotgun blasts to the face like it's little more than just a slap on the ass. Taking on tougher melee enemies too, there's just like no skill to it. You just pop some buff out, some psycho and med-X, and hope your health holds out long enough that you don't get killed. Fighting the iconic Deathclaws, for instance, like, there's nothing smart about it. They just run up to you and kill you in a few hits. Half the time I don't even see these guys coming until it's too late. Weapons start to become genuinely powerful around sort of level 20 or so, when you stop using guns that look like they're made out of rejects from a primary school science fair. Plus, it's also around that point, hopefully, with the main storyline, where you're able to get around the map a lot quicker with all the fast travel points. Gotta say though, hands down the biggest problem with this game is the performance. Now look, Fallout 76 just runs like dog shit, it really does. And everything negative you've heard about that is probably true. It wasn't too bad in the starting area, but once you get outside that first vault, the frame rate just goes to hell. For some reason, my frame rate was locked to 30 FPS, regardless of whether or not I was playing on the high or low settings. And I don't think the shoddy looking depth of field or the motion blur helped things either. I'm also not a fan of how low the FOV was by default, and frustratingly, these are options you can't modify in the game's settings. I mean, come on, you think these guys would know to let us turn on and off basic visual options like this? What I had to do was edit the configuration file in the My Documents folder to manually turn off that kind of stuff. And I also had to edit another line of code which was linked to the game capping at 30 frames per second. After I turned all that crap off, I actually got a pretty decent frame rate, around 60 or 70, making the gameplay way more smoother and enjoyable. But there's not really any excuse for having to do this just to get a game running properly from the get-go. We just shouldn't be putting up with horrible performance like this from a huge developer like Bethesda. It's just lazy. Even when I fixed my frame rate though, I still had to sit through the horrible loading times. Like, loading times in this game are just so slow. Some of the interior areas are still located in the world map, but a lot of them you still have to enter a building through a doorway, which loads an entirely new space. And loading back and forth between these can just be so time consuming. Sucks. It also doesn't fix the micro stuttering either, which happens a lot when you're moving through the map, which I guess is when it's loading in new areas. Thing is, it's not really that good looking of a game either. Some of the outdoor areas do look okay, like there's some nice lighting at times with god rays and that sort of thing, and I do think there's a serene beauty to some of the more remote locations. But the interiors just look really bad, almost like there's something wrong with the shaders, and it's not calculating light properly. And I don't think I'm exaggerating to say that it really does look last gen at times. Bethesda, I think it's time to take this engine out to pasture. I mean, it was time back when they released Skyrim.
No way, fucking hell.
Like the other games before it, Fallout 76 isn't the kind of game you want to rush through. There is something of a main storyline, but even after that's finished, there's still so much to see and do afterwards that you'll spend more time doing that than you will focusing on whatever tacked on narrative they're trying to push. And the most fun I've had in this game has just been those moments when I'm exploring with 2 or 3 other people. And maybe that's like the whole make or break thing here, which is why some people like it and some people seem to absolutely hate it. Fallout 76 is definitely a flawed game in a lot of ways, and it has real problems with performance and bugs. But if you say that about this game, you kind of have to say it about all of them. This is an ongoing issue with the series, and I can remember similar issues arising as far back as the release of Elder Scrolls Oblivion. Maybe it's just now that people are finally realizing. The problem with the reviews right now is that it's hard to separate the truth from the exaggerations. And everyone I've spoken to who hasn't played it has said they think it looks like shit. But everyone I've spoken to who has played it has had the same sentiments I had. In the sense of like, you know, it's okay. It's just okay. And it's just not quite this massive dumpster fire that people are making it out to be. So look, if you can take one thing away from this video, I just hope it's that I've given a more level-headed view on Fallout 76. Too long didn't watch? Fallout 76 is just Fallout 4 with co-op, some new mechanics and a new map to explore. And if you liked Fallout 4 and wanted more of the same with your buddies, well, a fun time can be had. Thanks for watching. Oh, perfect timing too, my laundry's arrived. The laundry bag with the giant dollar symbol on it.
But here in Vault 76, our future begins.
No way, fucking hell.